Hello, and welcome back to the Summit View. As we enter the new year, 11,000 people a day are retiring. Today, we're going to have a conversation about the things that you should be looking for in a financial advisor as we go through the new year. Scott, welcome back.
Hey, thanks, Tracy.
hmm one of the first things I think we're a fiduciary,
hmm
and I think you can probably speak to more of the percentage of how many actual financial advisors are fiduciaries. But as we act as that fiduciary, is that a responsibility 100% of the time?
Yes, and so a lot of advisors out there operate under a dual standard. So they have the suitability standard, and then they have the fiduciary standard. Brokers typically operate under suitability, meaning they have to provide a solution that is just suitable for you. Um, One option could be something that they perhaps earn a larger commission selling, but
Mm.
is it suitable? Yes. As a fiduciary, we operate under fiduciary standard 100% of the time. So legally, we are obligated to always act in our client's best interest. When folks are out there looking for a new advisor, that should be one of the number one things that they look for.
Mhm.
Is that advisor a broker operating under the suitability standard, or are they a true fiduciary, always offering advice that is 100% in the client's best interest?
So, why would all financial advisors not have to be fiduciaries? Is there a reason why they're not fiduciaries?
Not particularly. The broker dealers typically operate under that suitability standard, where
Mm.
fiduciaries, you see that more in the RIA space.
Okay.
But regardless, there are RIAs out there that can flip back and forth between a suitability and a fiduciary standard. You want to make sure when you're looking for a new money manager to make sure that they are operating 100% as a fiduciary to you.
Okay. So, what is the planning process, and how will you help potential clients identify that process based on their goals? And
So when you go out there and you're evaluating a money manager, whether you're just retiring and this is your first time talking to a financial advisor, or whether you've been working with an advisor for a long time, and now feeling as though it might be a good idea to get a second opinion, that first conversation that you have with whomever you're sitting down with should revolve entirely around you, what
Mhm.
your goals are, what your lifestyle is like, what obstacles you have in the way, what your legacy aspirations are. That is really the baseline for any sound plan, is understanding where you are today, where you want to go in the future, and how to get you there. If your first conversation is filling out a risk tolerance questionnaire and then getting presented a portfolio, you're probably not at the right place. When we meet with clients, we don't recommend any type of investment solutions to their situation until we've met several times, have a really good understanding of who they are, where they want to go, what they're currently doing, and if we can make an impact and move the needle for them, then that's what we're going to suggest.
Right. And that's why, with 11,000 people a day retiring, a lot of the larger uh, companies have more of that cattle process where you just come in, they do your risk score, and then they put you in a pre designed uh, program
Mhm,
because there's just not enough time in the day. When you're with more of a boutique like we are,
mhm.
we can actually sit down and discuss what you want life to look like, and that's something that's very important, I think, for people that to have that relationship with their advisor.
Yeah, and I've seen both sides of it. I've worked at the big box national firms
Right.
before, and I've worked at boutique firms before. And here at Peak, you're absolutely right. We're going to sit down with every single client face
Mhm.
to face, really find out what's important to them and what's driving them, and figure out how we could best help them get to their end destination. Whereas when you're with a big box firm, spending hundreds of millions of dollars on marketing and with hundreds of thousands of clients, you're not going to get that same personalized service. You're going to get a predetermined
Mhm.
portfolio that is for all their clients. That's the way that they're going to grow and scale. It's not tailored to you and to your goals.
Right. I think another thing too that is important is if you call uh, someone to make an appointment, and because I know this has happened with companies I've worked for, other companies, and they say, "We can't see you unless you have $500,000, or we can't see you unless you have $1,000,000."
Mhm.
Um, Really, I think, that's another sign of a company that's got more business than they can handle,
Mhm.
because then they've had to sit in those limits. So, really, truly, if you call in and somebody's not willing to, have a conversation with you, whether it be a Zoom, or because we service people all over the United States, so a
Mhm.
lot of those calls are Zoom, whether it's Zoom or a telephone call, that's a sign of a company that's too busy for you.
Mhm.
So, um, so let's talk about the taxes. That's really important, and especially this time of year, I think people want help reducing their taxes.
Mhm.
So, what part does that play in our business?
So again, when you go to meet with an advisor, say more often than not, you're going to find advisors who are solely focused in on managing money,
Hmm.
putting an investment portfolio in place and rebalancing it a couple times a year. You want to make sure that you're partnering with a firm that either has in-house CPAs or a CPA firm on retainer where they could do that high level tax planning
Right.
for you. Um, Oftentimes we see people that have their investment manager, then they have their CPA. They operate independently in their own silos. They don't communicate with each
Mhm.
other. When that happens, that's where the gaps and problems occur. So it's really important when you're evaluating a financial advisor to work with if they have access to a CPA team, if they do high level tax strategies. For our clients, we do all that.
Right.
We have a partnership with a CPA firm that we could go to for tax questions, tax planning. We run our own analysis before we send it over there to make sure that what we're looking at is in line with the tax code and
Mhm.
have the CPAs report on it and get back to us.
Right. Because what happens, they'll come to us and then take it to a CPA, and a CPA might, you know, suggest something else, but and I'm talking about for their wealth planning,
Mhm.
like, "Oh, we don't like that idea," when we're not, we're wealth planning, so we don't give tax advice.
Mhm.
The same thing for a CPA, like, you should, I think, stay in the lane, right? Because that's why it's so important to have the communication. So you can have, we also have estate attorneys that
Mhm.
we work with, and I mean, like, we can get in contact with an estate attorney when we need to, and a CPA when we need to. So I think that's where people get in trouble, is they try to do these three pieces that is planning their future, and they they may have three different opinions.
Yeah, when they operate independently in their own
Mhm.
silos, and you brought up a good point there with estate planning as well.
Mhm.
You have investment management, you have estate
Right.
planning, you have your tax strategies. To have a solid retirement, all of those have to be working in unison together. If they're each operating independently and nobody's talking to each other,
Mhm.
that's where we see serious problems. That's why we've brought on a really great estate planning firm. We have a CPA firm.
Mhm.
So anything that we're doing or recommending for our clients has been reviewed, vetted, and given the stamp of approval by an estate attorney or by a CPA. So we can be sure that the strategies that we're using for our clients are in their best interest and they're going to best suit them in the future.
Right. Okay, so here's a big one, and let's get it out of the way because it's a big one. How are you compensated?
So a true fiduciary typically operates on a fee only basis.
Mhm.
So we charge a percentage of assets under management. And another unique thing about working with a boutique firm that has those relationships with a CPA or with an estate planning attorney, we're able to do all of that planning for our clients, whether it's the tax strategies or estate coordination,
Mhm.
and we're able to accomplish that all under our advisory fee. Now, there will be one-off situations where if a client chooses to have their tax return prepared by that CPA, that'll be a one-off contract with that
Right.
CPA to do that. Where same thing goes for estate planning. If estate documents need to be drafted, a living trust needs to be drafted, or a trust needs to be drafted, that's going to be a one-off contract with uh, that estate planning attorney. But we have those relationships already in place. They understand how our business works. We understand what they need, and so we're making sure that everything is moving in that right direction for the client.
So how often, do you meet with clients, and what does, the ongoing if you're with the right financial advisor, what does that ongoing, communication look like?
So if during that conversation, if you ask your financial advisor, how often do we meet? And they give you a blanket statement, something like, we meet quarterly or we meet once a year to review your situation, I would continue to look. The right answer should be, how often do you want to meet?
Right.
Right? We have some clients that want to meet once a month just for a quick phone call, just
Mhm.
to get acclimated with what's happening.
Mhm.
Other clients don't need as much communication depending on their comfort level. At a bare minimum, you should be meeting at least once a quarter and doing at least one annual review. But we always leave it up to our clients to determine the cadence. Like I said, at a minimum, it's once a quarter, but if they want to hear from us once a week to start, we're going to do what our clients want.
And that's really the way it should be. I mean, they're paying for a service,
Yep.
so it should be, about them.
Yeah.
So it should be about what they feel comfortable with, as a new client.
And if you think about it, in retirement, this is probably, if not the highest, one of the highest expenses that retirees have
Mhm.
is the fee that they pay to their wealth management company.
Mm.
That's keeping them on track for the rest of their life, making sure they're accomplishing the goals that they want to accomplish, leaving the legacy behind to their family that they want. The advisor should be accessible. If you call them, you should expect a callback if they don't pick up the phone within 24 hours.
Right.
You should be able to meet with them as often as you want, not on a set timetable determined by the advisor.
And I think another thing um, that potential clients don't realize, is that in some situations with firms that, are larger firms, because we're talking about really the boutique experience versus a larger firm
Mm,
for the 11,000 people every day. I think one of the things they don't realize is that, um, you don't meet with you may go through several people,
mm,
to even get to a potential advisor to interview,
mm.
and then, unfortunately, if your business is under a certain amount, you may be sent out of the States for your communications.
Yeah, you see that quite often, and especially at, I'm just going to use the term, the big box firms, the
Right.
ones that you see advertising all over TV,
Mhm.
extremely high turnover in those positions. So I would bet that you're going to be talking to many financial advisors during your
Right.
lifetime at that firm, each time
Mhm.
having to basically start over, re-explain your story, re-explain your
Mhm.
goals, get that advisor's take on how you should be accomplishing those, or the firm's take on how you should be accomplishing those, versus partnering with a boutique firm like ours, where you have your dedicated advisor. That's who you work with from start to finish. And we have a great support staff here that comes in and helps when they need to. But you explain your story once.
Right. Well, and, that becomes frustrating because you do have to explain your story multiple times,
Mhm.
and, that can become very frustrating
Yep.
to a potential client.
And when you think about relationships that can span decades,
Yeah.
if every 5 years or 3 years, uh, there's a new face sitting across the desk or a new voice on the other side of the phone, and you're starting over from ground zero, there's a lot of nuance in conversations that occurs over the course of time of working with someone,
Mhm.
and having to go back and re-explain a decade-long relationship to the third or fourth person now can be very frustrating.
Yeah, when I'm asked about that, I kind of, correlate it to your relationship. You want your doctor to know your medical history,
Mm,
and, I've had the same doctor for 8 years. Like, if I had to go in now and redo my history with a new doctor, if I saw a new PA or something every time, right? You kinda get the feeling that you're not really cared about that
mm.
much because they're too busy for the doctor to see you.
And again, at those big box firms, it's not the client deciding typically they want to work with a new
Mhm.
advisor. It's turnover within that firm.
Right.
And so it would be like if you go to the same doctor group and you make an appointment, and then all of a sudden it's a new doctor.
Yeah.
And then the next time you make an appointment
It's
thinking you're going to see the same doctor, and then it's a different doctor. It can be really frustrating.
Okay, so let's go on to the next question. What is your experience helping people retire and stay retired?
So that's really our bread and butter. We get folks ready for retirement and then make sure that during retirement they can live the life they want.
Mm,
There's a lot of nuance in that. You think about two different stages of life. You have your accumulation phase when you're getting ready to retire, and that's a strategy that we have to work really closely with our clients to make sure that the plan that we have in place is going to get them to
mhm,
retirement. And then once you get to retirement, that's a whole nother phase. And you have to look at distributions, social security optimization, different types of streams of income.
mhm.
If your advisor isn't looking at everything and solely focusing on retirement, getting you ready for retirement, and not talking to you about the correct timing of Social Security or which accounts to draw from first for the most tax efficient manner, or Roth conversions if it makes sense, or guaranteed income. These are all parts of the overall puzzle. And
Right.
if one of them is left out, then you don't have a plan.
And I think that's our passion is
Mhm.
helping people retire. So when we see that our client is retired and enjoying their life, that's what makes us happy.
Yeah,
You know, we want that.
yeah, and it's a very scary thought to
Mhm.
retire,
Yeah.
right? You think you've worked 30, 40, sometimes 50 years of your life to get to this point, and then all of a sudden the switch flips. It's a hard adjustment, but we want to remove the complexity from that. You've already spent your entire life saving, working. You don't want to have to worry about, is this money going to last? Can I take this vacation? Can I buy these gifts for my children or my grandchildren?
Oh yeah.
You want to have confidence and clarity in retirement, and that's exactly what we do.
Okay, so let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, this is an interesting question. It's about our technology, and we're very proud of the
Mhm.
technology we have.
Yeah.
So share with us what that looks like.
So, right from the initial meeting, we're not pulling out any technology stacks at that point. We're just having a
Right.
conversation. But once we move to the next step of partnership, what we want to do is an analysis, and we use the best portfolio analysis technology that's out there on the market right now. And we're constantly using this throughout the relationship with our client to evaluate risk, portfolio efficiency, everything that you could possibly think of that is kind of the inner workings of how a portfolio is being made.
Yeah.
That's part of how we manage the portfolios. On top of that, we use the most advanced financial planning software that's available. So we're able to model out what the rest of your life could potentially look like. A lot of advisors use hypothetical or historic data to model out how a certain portfolio would have looked over the past 20 or 30 years. Well, that's great, but it's not going to tell us what the next 20 or 30 years is
Yeah.
going to look like. And nobody has a crystal ball, but the software and technology that we use does the closest job that you can get to having a crystal ball to determine, is this plan going to work? What's the chance of success? What are taxes going to look like in the future? And we put all that together, and then we also use our tax planning software to model out, hey, is there a better way to go about these distributions to save you some money on taxes? Is that extra distribution going to push you into some surcharges on
Mm,
Medicare? So we're looking at all these different aspects, and your advisor should be too.
right. It's never probably been a better time for retirees with the technology we have these days to really
Oh
help
yeah.
predict the future.
Yeah, you think about how far technology has come just in our own lives in the past 20 years, where now everybody's carrying around basically a supercomputer in their
Yeah.
pocket with an iPhone or an Android.
Mhm.
Um, Financial planning technology has come a long way as well. And if your advisor hasn't adapted and embraced the technology that's available, then it's probably time to look for a new advisor.
Okay, and the next question is probably second to the number one question that we usually get is first is like, what do you charge, right?
Mhm.
Well, this is probably the second question, and this is if the markets were to fall 20 to 30%, what are you going to do?
So we have a strategy in place for that. Whereas most advisors have a strategy in place for when the markets are growing.
Mhm.
We also understand markets aren't going to go up all the time. And that's where having diversified income sources, withdrawal strategies, guaranteed income sources all play a crucial role in managing a portfolio, not just up to retirement, but especially into retirement, right? If you see the market drop by 20 or 30%, which is not uncommon, you want to make sure that you have an income source to provide you the level of lifestyle that you need without having to tap into investments that may be currently not doing so well.
So if someone walked into their advisor's office today and asked and had never asked that question and asked that question, what would what would be a red flag answer? Like what would be something that they might hear that you would say, "Oh, that's probably a red flag."
If your advisor says, I'm watching the market, and when things aren't going well, we're going to put some off to the side. And when things get better, we're going to get back in. I would get up and I would not walk to the door. I would run to the door. You want someone that has a clear, defined strategy of what they're going to do during different market cycles, not just we're going to watch and we're going to sell some when it goes down.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Summit View. The questions you heard are very important to look into as we go into 2026. If you don't have an advisor, we'd be happy to look at your current situation. There'll be a link below for you to set up an appointment either through Zoom, phone call, or in person. If you have an advisor, it might be some things that you want to ask your advisor so you know that you're in the right place. As well as we will have the questions listed below in the comments so that if there's something in particular you're interested in, you can move right through the video and find that. Thank you again for joining us for this episode of the Summit View.